This is the twist flip. It's a mechanic that is beginning to be used more and more by pro players in the RLCS. It's arguably the most difficult flip to do in Rocket League right now, but at the same time, it's one of the most useful. And that's just one of many mechanics that we're going to be talking about in this video. These are 5 Rocket League mechanics that will become the meta in 2021. So this first mechanic is honestly one of my favorites on this list. It's what I'm calling the drop-down catch. The basic premise of it is that when you go up for a low aerial, 99% of the time the defense is going to expect a power shot. That's just basic Rocket League, that when you jump for it, that means you're committing to hitting it because you can't just hit the brakes or turn away since you're in the air. However, if you jump and rotate your car just right, you can actually soften it perfectly to where you can keep control of it even if you have a decent bit of momentum going forward on your initial jump. To some high-level players, this may already be a shot in your skill set that you use sometimes. But the thing is, if you're able to do this consistently, you're probably not doing it often enough because this mechanic is one of the hardest moves to read on defense, and it's way more effective than you think. Here's the deal. When you jump for a low aerial such as this, and you can put some good power on it, the defender in net has to do a really good job timing his arrival back to net, so he's in the right spot at the right time. If the shot goes top left here, he just carries on his momentum that he already has and uses it to reach the ball. If it's top right, he slams on the brakes and jumps up to make the save. The point is, if the defender does everything right on his end, sometimes scoring a power shot in this position is just impossible. But if you do the drop-down catch, now suddenly the tables have turned and you're in that position because if you do everything right, there's nothing the defender can do to save it. The reason this works so well is because you're actually taking your shot later than you would if it were just a normal power shot. Because of this, the defender either has to slam on the brakes to stay at the back post, which obviously kills his momentum and puts him in a weird spot. This causes the left side of the net to be exposed. Or he can keep his momentum, which positions himself more toward the middle of the goal. This causes the right side of the net to be exposed. No matter what the defender chooses to do, at least one part of the net will be open to shoot on. On top of all of this, even if you're using this at midfield or in a corner somewhere, it's still beneficial because when you're gearing up to take a big touch, opponents will often back off to give themselves more space and time to react to wherever you put the ball. Obviously, when they back off, this gives you all the space you want to start an organized dribble. The best part about all of this is there's no way for the defender to predict whether you're going to do a drop-down catch or a normal power shot. They both look exactly the same up until the moment where you actually drop it down or take the shot. The worst part about this, on the other hand, is the fact that this mechanic is 10 times harder than it actually looks. Even just getting clips for this section of the video took so long, it's actually ridiculous. I created this little shot sequence that I used to practice it a little, and it took me about 30 tries at first to even just get one that I was satisfied with. Even now, after all this practice, I still find it difficult to get a perfect wheel touch. So that's why I think this is one of those mechanics that will definitely become super important at a pro level, but anywhere lower than that, it'll just be something that you keep in the back of your mind. Next up is wall reads. You're probably like, Wayton, what? This isn't even a mechanic. How is this even on this list? Well, it's on the list because although it may not be a specific mechanic, it's probably the biggest basic skill that is furthest from being perfected, even at the highest level of Rocket League. When you look at pro gameplay, it seems like it's really hard to find mistakes from players on an individual level because everything seems so fast and so perfect. But when you look closer and pay attention specifically to the wall reads, suddenly you notice how imperfect everything is. You start to notice these little hesitations and late jumps from awkward spots. All of the examples you're seeing on screen now are from the same series of just 4 games. And these 2 teams are both top 3 in North America right now. It really didn't take long to find these little mistakes because wall reads are just so difficult to perfect. Not impossible to perfect, but very difficult. There's just so much room for improvement even at the top level of play. And just to be clear, it's only certain types of wall reads that are more difficult. For example, if the ball is bouncing off a flat wall and you have a perfect side angle to read it, those are usually really easy. But if you kind of have a diagonal angle on it or it's bouncing off a corner, that's where it gets really difficult. Sometimes on defense, pros will just not go for the read even at the cost of giving the opponent a free hit because they're that underconfident with those reads. They think it'll just be better if they try and react to the opponent's shot instead of reading that wall bounce initially. So wall reads are definitely something I think players will start putting more and more practice into, especially at the highest level, considering it's probably furthest behind out of all the basic skills of Rocket League. Next up is Musty Flicks, and I'm not talking about Musty Flicks from a ground dribble. To me, that's just a less efficient and powerful way to do a normal flick. I'm talking about Musty Flicks in the air. The best example of this, and probably the easiest version, is doing it on a ceiling shot, but it can be done from just a normal air dribble setup too, or from a flip reset. This is something that started to really gain popularity in the freestyle world a while ago, but it started to work its way into the competitive scene ever since. And the reason is obvious. I mean, just look at the power that you can get on this. The fact that freestylers have mastered it consistently shows that it's definitely repeatable, and considering how much power you can get, it's definitely useful in competitive play. Some pro players have already begun implementing this into their games. Arsenal is a good example of this. He has a few highlights where he uses the scooping action of the Musty Flick to his advantage, so he can pop it up in the air that's way harder to read and react to. Another huge benefit of this is the fact that you can fake a shot so easily and then go for a Musty Flick immediately after. It's kind of like the drop down catch in that you fake the immediate power shot, except you're still hitting it in the air, and the result is similar because of that. It kind of stalls out the defense. Since this mechanic isn't used that often in competitive play right now, when it does get used, it's that much more effective since the defense doesn't have much experience reading that type of shot. So that's why I think Musty Flicks, particularly in the air, will be used much more often in the future. Next up is wave dashes. Again, you're probably like, Wayton, what the heck? This is another thing that doesn't belong here. People have been using wave dashes since like 2016. And while that is true, I think the way wave dashes will be used is going to be completely different in the future. I think that when it comes to gaining speed in rotations, especially when moving up onto offense, wave dashes will eventually replace flips. Oh my god. Now, obviously, this does have some wiggle room. There will still be plenty of circumstances where flipping is better, but hear out my explanation. Every single time you flip, you're committing to the direction that you're going for quite a while until your wheels land. But at the same time, you're getting that speed boost instantly, which is good. Every time you wave dash, you're getting that speed boost a little later since you have to wait for your back wheels to land to hit the ground before you can dodge. But you also aren't committing to any direction. As soon as you get that speed boost, you can use it to go wherever you want. That benefit is huge. A lot of the time, you'll be in a situation where you can't exactly go for the ball yet because you just don't know where it's going. That right there is a perfect time to wave dash, so no matter where the ball goes, you'll have plenty of momentum, and you'll be able to take that momentum in whatever direction you want, instead of just guessing where the ball is going to go by flipping in a specific direction, or just not flipping at all and not having as much momentum entirely. Another example of where this can be used is commonly in ones. When I'm playing ones, sometimes I'll find myself with a breakaway with no boost where I'm too close to the ball so that I can't flip into it or I just get a dead wheel touch, but I'm also not going fast enough to where they just get back in time for the save if I just do nothing. This is a situation where wave dashing is the best option, so I can gain speed without actually flipping. On top of that, starting out with no boost or momentum, using 2 wave dashes and then a flip is actually a little bit faster than only using flips if done correctly. These are just a few specific situations where wave dashing is better than flipping, and I'm sure there will be plenty more that get discovered in the future. So even though wave dashes have existed for a while, I think the way they're used has yet to reach its full potential. Alright, the twist flip. This is something that's extremely hard to do, but the purpose of it is very clear. In short, it allows you to get multiple touches from a wall clear. It basically accomplishes the same thing as an air dribble, except the twist flip makes it much quicker, harder to read, and saves more boost. Just to be clear, I did not invent this mechanic. It's just something that I've noticed pro players do pretty often, and I decided to give it a name, so I'm not referring to it as the diagonal cancel, uncancel pre-flip, because for some reason that just doesn't ring. I don't know. What the flip is on its own is pretty much this. It's kind of like a speed flip, but you uncancel at a specific angle and moment, and it causes your nose to fling straight upward. So it's like a pre-flip version of it. And you have to uncancel perfectly, or else your nose will just fling forward, which isn't what you want most of the time. Using the twist flip on a wall clear allows you to flip into the ball for an initial clear, and then since your nose flings up at the end, you can keep boosting and get more touches to carry it even farther. The precision it takes to pull this off is already extremely difficult, but to pull this off in a particular direction and height is even more tough. I'm not even going to bother trying to explain this flip in detail because it's so complex that I don't even have the muscle memory down to get it consistently yet, so I have a controller overlay on here if you want to see the inputs that I'm doing. Just keep in mind that my bumpers are air roll right and air roll left. If you try this and you think the timing of the cancel is tricky, try adding the difficulty of timing the flip itself. It's important when you hit the ball initially that you don't hit it too hard, but you also don't hit it too soft. A technique I use to try and control it is timing my flip to be either before or after my touch on the ball. If I'm going really fast already, I'll time it to be after my touch on the ball, so I'm not hitting the ball as hard and I use my flip to catch up to it. If I'm going slower, I'll time my flip before the touch on the ball, so I'm supplying some power into it to get the momentum going. I say all this as if I know what I'm talking about with this mechanic, which is only half true because I understand how it works, but I'm far from being able to pull it off consistently. I usually practice it by trying to get the flip mechanic down first, which I know I'm doing right if my nose flings straight up and I can turn it into an aerial. And then I try doing it on a wall clear, which is obviously 10 times harder. Overall, this is definitely one of those high skill mechanics that I can totally imagine being fundamental at pro level in the very near future if it isn't already. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit subscribe. I'm going to be making videos just like this one every single week because I'm not doing this full time. And I know that almost all of you aren't actually subscribed to the channel, so if you can do me a favor, hit that button because it really helps with the algorithm and all that. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.